That's good. Well, you'll be
He's
first
live
up tonight, I think.
If it's up to you, yes. If it's your
I think in the
discretion.
interest of not having,
Your discretion, yeah, to move it.
but we'll do an agenda review. Okay. Okay, it's 6:30, so I will call to order the meeting of the Newport Conservation Commission for Wednesday, November 15th. Start with a roll call to my far right.
Don Shagan.
Gunter Hubert.
Barry Connell.
Larry Schissel. I didn't hear from Ken or Linda, but they're usually on time, so I suspect they're just something's kept them. Okay, Gunther, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, we'll do that.
I'm more patriotic than you.
Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, Veterans Day is just passed, and I'm sure we all have veterans in our families, or maybe some of us may be veterans, so thank you for everybody who ever served in the armed forces.
I won't.
Or uniformed services. Agenda review. Anybody have any additions to the agenda as printed, posted? Anything they want to scratch? I, for one, would like to move new business of Brunel subdivision up to proceed old business. In the interest of having our guests be able to get on with their night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You need a motion for that?
Guess we need a motion to amend the agenda.
Yeah, so I make a motion to amend the agenda so that Brunel subdivision would be our first item of business tonight.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Good. Spencer, and I apologize, we've talked a couple times. Your last name?
Yeah, Tate.
Tate.
Can everybody hear me or see me? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Despite being there last night, I don't remember what the exact format is if you chime in electronically.
Yeah.
So
No, you're
hopefully
doing
you can
good.
hear me.
So, yeah, no. In fact, this is all a little new to us sometimes. These presentations. You're representing the project of Brunel, which is what was the name of the business company? On Site.
Brunel Estates.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's actually under private ownership as Mark Brunel. He does own a contracting company, a site excavation company called On Site Contracting, but that's, I would say, immaterial because it's under private ownership as Mark Brunel. I can get right into it. I guess if I could be reminded, maybe through staff. I'm not sure if there's an ability to share my screen, or if you guys have the. I know I left paper copies yesterday evening from the planning board. Okay, so you have them. So I'll probably just verbally go through it then,
You can.
unless there was a specific item of detail.
Spencer.
Then I think we can fuss with screen imagery and me pointing things out, unless unless the board or the committee would like to see some other format. But I think if you guys have paper copies, I'll just proceed through my presentation, and then just chime in if there's a point of clarity that needs to be expanded upon.
Spencer, can you hold on 1 second?
Yep.
If you'd like, we do have that ability. I don't know if it would come up on that screen. I don't know if looking at a copy and knowing you're following along in the right spot would be helpful, or the way he said it.
Do the copies have numbered numbers or something so that we could be sure we're on the right page.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the best thing is probably, and I'm probably going to bounce around a little bit, quite frankly, but the sheet number is in the lower right-hand corner.
Okay,
Should be sheet 1 through 15 in front of you.
Yeah, I think as long as you identify what sheet you're on, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll try to clue you in every time I'm flipping. I've got a couple notebooks in front of me too, but and I apologize for not introducing myself. Spencer Tate with Meridian Land Services. I'm a certified wetland scientist, certified soil scientist, and licensed septic system designer in the state of New Hampshire. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Mark Brunel and to represent the project. As I believe 2 of you know, at least this proposal was in front of the planning board yesterday evening for its review and approval, and it was continued yesterday evening. And part of the reason why we're here is to elicit comment from the committee so that those can be rendered to the planning board in their consideration of the proposal. So for 2 of you or half of you, this is probably going to be pretty redundant, but in the interest of those there, and I don't know if are there any members of the public?
No, there's no other.
Yeah.
There are maybe in TV land watching from home, but
Okay.
which if they had the screen pictures of this, subdivision, that might be helpful. But I think they'll be fine at home. Well, it is what it is. So why don't you go ahead and proceed?
So the proposed subdivision, it's on map. It's map 218, lot 11. It's entirely within the town of Newport. It's on the north end of town, proceeding north on Route 10, roughly about, I would call it about a mile from the high school. The lot is 20.94 acres, and as you know, it's an existing aggregate pit. While the subdivision is being proposed and moving through the municipal processes, the aggregate operation has been paused, but clearly it's still an open pit. So it's a high, it's basically a glacial outwash deposit of primarily two large knobs of sand and gravel with a wetland that bisects the lot. I think going to sheet 2 might be beneficial, just to oversee the existing conditions of the lot at the time of the survey, which is this past spring. So this is kind of a bit of a rotation for you, with New Hampshire Route 10 going south to north and north and south, is now going left to right across the page. There's approximately 2,000 feet of frontage. You can see the wetland area. If you look at the legend, you can see the delineated wetland area. It's a dash, dot, 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 dash, dot, 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 with a stipple in it. And you can actually see the culvert that it drains to that crosses Route 10. Most of the proposal is a 22-lot open space or cluster subdivision. And what that allows us to do is take the allowed density that would have been is allowed by right or allowed by the zoning on this lot and collapse it down into the smallest possible area. And that allows us to keep greater than 10% of the parent lot in open space in perpetuity. And that largely encompasses the existing wetland areas to the south and southwest of the lot. It's primarily surrounded by forest land, other than map 218, lot 12, the Bobby J. Weiler Revocable Trust property, which you can see on that sheet 2 plan. There's areas that have been cleared there for ag use, hay or pasture, but primarily 360 degrees around here is forest land and private ownership. The lot 218-10 is a town of Newport lot that's been designated for some well siting, which came up in discussions yesterday evening. And then the remaining lots are privately owned. I don't know to what level I need to get into this for this committee, but basically the lots will be serviced by, are intended to be serviced by municipal water, which will be extended up the Route 10 right of way, and then Poker Cross. So I think probably the next most beneficial slide or sheet would be let's just go to sheet 3. I think would be the simplest depiction of the proposed 22 lot configuration. So again, this allows the remainder of the parent lot that wouldn't be used for development to be put into open space in perpetuity. That's a little bit over 3 acres. And that's to the south. That's the triangular piece to the south, which again largely encompasses a good chunk of the wetland areas. The lots 218-11-1 through 218-11-22 range in size from around a half acre all the way up to about 1.5 acres, but are sized to accommodate on-site septics. We did test pits on each one of those lots to demonstrate the suitability. We obviously have to go through state subdivision application for those lots that are serviced by on-site septics. I'm going to jump over to my other plan set, which is the same plan set for you. So sheet, I think probably sheet EC1 or sheet 7 of 15 is going to be the next most beneficial, just to depict the proposed construction, which it also outlines the erosion and sedimentation control plan. So you can see the 1,050-foot long road that is intended to be constructed to service these lots. It terminates at a cul-de-sac. The drainage schema for this lot, essentially, we don't have stationing on this in this plan view. I think it's on some of the subsequent sheets. But if you can see the shared lot line between parcel 218-11-5 and 218-11-4, right, the road roughly in that location is the high spot. Stormwater to the north of that will drain towards the end of the cul-de-sac. The tip of the cul-de-sac move through a culvert and drain out to an infiltration basin. Stormwater that occurs to the south of that will drain southerly to 2 catch basins, and then into some closed structures, and then into a gravel wetland. And you can see that towards plan view right-hand side of that page. The proposed development, including all the infrastructure, drainage, grading, roadway, will all be bounded with erosion control devices, which are obligated to be inspected with the NPDES, the SWIP permit that they'll need to get for the construction activities. Anytime you disturb more than 1 acre, you need to file that. And that involves routine inspections, a minimum of weekly and or after any significant rainstorm event, to make sure that erosion control is also in place
Spencer,
and functioning.
The
Excuse me.
acronym of SWEP be stated.
There is a question, so to clarify what SWEPT is an acronym for?
Yes, SWIP, Stormwater Pollution and Prevention Plan, I believe, which is an EPA. It's an EPA requirement for any construction activities greater than 1 acre. That's not something that would be required at this time. It's basically during construction. It's filed by the contractor at the time of groundbreaking, and it's basically a construction permit.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's see. You guys can check my acronym on that, but they're colloquially the SWIP, but I believe that's what they stand for: Stormwater
That's
Pollution
unbelievable.
and Prevention Control Plan. Let's see. We can get into the road drainage design. That was discussed at the planning board. That's going to be on sheet P1. It's a little bit more specific regarding the grading. The contemplated locations for septics, test pits are depicted on that plan. Sorry, that's sheet number 9. And then it also details the gravel, wetland, and infiltration basin grading regime. But basically, it's open drainage to the points where it needs to be piped, and then all the stormwater is going to be treated through the either the gravel, wetland, or the infiltration basin in accordance with not only the town standards but also alteration of terrain standards at DES.
So these are open water, these drainage basins. Is that correct?
When you say open water,
Well, they're like pools, or
well, yeah.
I'm trying to
they're
understand
open
what
drainage
this is.
The infiltration basin, I believe, has a mandatory retention time for it to drain down, but it can't exceed that time.
But after a storm, it would be
stormwater event.
There'd be some surface water in these areas after a storm, at least.
Yes, but that
Okay.
is intended to be otherwise dry. It's not supposed to be a wet pond.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, thank you.
Although last night it was mentioned that the one in the south end would have a discharge overflow. So if I understood you correctly last night, Spencer, it sounded like that would generally have water in it. Is that correct?
The gravel wetland to the south.
Yes.
Is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
Yeah. So they actually both have spillways during an emergency, freak storm, so that floodwater can spill out of them as opposed to retaining it and having a breach. So that's an engineering mandate. But yeah, the gravel wetland will have water trickling out of it, but it won't be all the time. That's during stormwater events.
Okay.
What we want to do is retard the flow of water such that you're getting treatment out of it.
Yeah.
So during stormwater events and afterwards, for a period of 36, 48 hours, you'll get that trickle, but it's not intended to be tapping into groundwater or anything where you'll get a constant trickle or spring out of it. It's really just for the stormwater events.
And where is the spillway on the south end retention area?
So this is going to be,
Is that sort of has a long axis north to south, or
Yeah.
or rather east to west, rather.
east to west. So if you're looking on sheet 9, the plan and profile sheet,
Yeah.
this is extra difficult remotely. Yeah, sheet P1, sheet 9, the plan and profile sheet. You can actually see the outlet control structure is called out. So that's the outfall location of that stormwater.
And so that would control excess in, say, these historic rains we had this summer.
Maybe.
But there was a lot
Yeah.
of washout from the, silt washout into the lowland area that either abutted or went right into the wetland as demarcated. So is that outflow somehow control silt and sand and whatnot?
Yeah, so the outlet control structure, I believe, and that you can go through sheets. Let me see if I can get them for you. It's going to be sheet. Your detail sheets should start at sheet number 10.
Because obviously it's not water so much that harms the wetland as the
As the sediment.
as the sediment.
Yeah, so actually sheet D4, which is sheet 13 and 15, details it gives you a profile of that gravel wetland and how it's intended to function. So it basically forces stormwater in through anaerobic media. And so you're basically getting a sediment filter to capture the sand and any sort of particulates. You know, sand is one thing, but in the subdivision, you know, it's cigarette butts and dog poop and Dunkin' Donuts cups and everything else. So the part of the functionality of the gravel wetland is there's a filter media, you can call it, almost like a Brita filter that the water has to move through to get to the outlet control structure. So if you see the bottom, it's the detail on the bottom of that sheet 13 for gravel wetland detail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That shows the intended functionality of this. So the way that they control the outfall is they set the outlet pipe up. Water's going to want to find the lowest point. So basically the outlet pipe at the outlet control structure is set at the top of the gravel wetland so that the gravel wetland is always saturated. It's always an anaerobic environment, and that's what allows for the denitrification to occur.
Are these structures rated in some fashion for the amount of water that they can handle, like, say, inches of rain per hour, or rated in some fashion that way?
Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit out of my britches with that in terms of the civil engineering involved with this. But yeah, they ran hydraulics calcs on them, the civil engineers that stamped this, Brad Casperson. And that is all included in the stormwater report, which was provided in the AOT application. I think the town was CC'd on. But yeah, that justifies the sizing of this, of the all the piping, the intake rates, the sizing of the catch basin is all based on a certain rainfall event over a 24-hour period of time. I can't tell you what that size or what that volume is or what that rate is offhand. But yeah, that's the justification for the sizing of the components.
The engineering would be lost on me, I'm sure. But, you know, you're at the bottom of a fairly sizable hill. Actually, the tallest peak point in Newport is right above this subdivision.
Yeah, so part of what we do with AOT is we it's all about the on-site runoff that's going to be created. You don't want to generate more runoff from the site than that which previously exists, but you also don't want to capture all of the runoff from the site that previously existed. You want the site to have a minimal impact on the hydrology of the overall landscape.
Yeah.
So they model it. They model the site before there's any disturbance, before there's any project, so as it currently is, and then they model it after. And that delta is what we're trying to treat. So we're not trying to treat everything that comes onto this site, but you're trying to, not just from a water quality standpoint, but from a quantity standpoint, but you also don't want to dry out any downstream or downgradient wetland areas by capturing everything.
Sure.
So it's really just that delta that they're trying to capture, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to go through any, answer any additional questions that I have the knowledge or capabilities to answer. If I don't, I'm happy to find you guys an answer. I know you reached out to Jeff Lecharzik regarding the sediment runoff into the wetlands from the aggregate operation. So I actually have a phone call into Mr. Lecharzik to see if we can either hasten his findings on that or come to some resolution so that it's not a hold up or sticking point, further on down the road. And certainly if there was some sort of restoration that would occur, I mean, the clock is ticking. Climatically, the clock is ticking to get any sort of earth moving done. If we need to get in there and remove some of the sediments.
The lots 19 through 21, and then the retention ponds are, butt right up, and according to the map, the lot lines that are drawn, you're really right on the edge of the wetland, and even if you can protect the wetland in the final product, there's going to be construction that's going on. And what are the how can you minimize or protect the wetland during just the construction phase of this whole thing?
Yes, I guess I'd go back to the sheet. Let's see, sheet 7. So there's an obligation when there's ground moving activity at a scale of this. They need to meet the AOT requirements. They need to meet the EPA's requirements regarding the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution and Protection Plan. That they need to maintain the site with a level of, just because there's construction that occurs doesn't automatically give somebody an allowance to disturb wetland areas off-site. That's always been the law, or it's, at least in modern times, it's the law. You can't disturb wetlands through construction activities without a permit. So with the engineering protocols and the permit processes, you would hope that those are obliged by, and it's sufficient enough to protect the wetland areas. While I agree with you that we show wetlands on some of the lots, the proposed lots, I have 6 acres, and I have some wetlands on my piece of land. It's not unnormal to have wetland areas or wetland resources on private property, but just because they're on private property doesn't exempt a landowner from meeting state and actually federal law regarding impacts. So there's a vested interest in wanting to protect the wetland areas here. If the town, I guess I would encourage maybe revisiting the zoning ordinance regarding setbacks or buffers or separation distances. But everything that we're proposing meets both the town regulations and the regulations at the state and the federal government. So the best we can do is protect the resources to the greatest extent possible. I'm referencing the restoration issue or the compliance issue. There's one could argue that upon final grading of this proposed site, the proposal before you, you would eliminate the potential for sedimentation that currently occurs at that site. You got to remember, we get a 2-inch rainstorm, tomorrow or next week, and the sediment's going to flow downhill. But if the site is graded in accordance with an engineering plan, it should at least be funneled towards an area where it can be captured. So that's the intent of this proposal. I don't want to make any claim that the the proposed subdivision is going to be least impactful than pre-existing unaltered land area, right? That wouldn't really pass the sniff test. But to the greatest extent possible, we want to protect the resources that are on the site. And we're doing that through the proposed stormwater management plan, the erosion control plan, the SWIP plan, alteration of terrain permit that we're seeking, and the civil engineering that went into the project.
Proceed.
I have a question that I was wondering if you could ask Mr. Chairman. My understanding of construction on any properties that have wetlands, there has to be the protective silt fencing that is put up. And I understand that obviously if there's huge rainstorms and it falls down one night, but that then they repair it and fix it, that is Spencer stating that that won't be being done on those 4 parcels that have wetlands on it?
Did you hear that question?
I did, and no, I'm absolutely not saying that. So upon completion, the erosion control can come up, assuming everything's revegetated in accordance with the erosion control notes, which are going to be back in the bowels of the plans there, sheet probably 12, 13, or 14, which specifically stipulates that the only time the erosion control, the silt fence and erosion control can be removed is when the area is sufficiently stabilized. Okay. And stabilized means it's either has 95% aerial coverage of vegetation or is sufficiently mulched such that a rainstorm event doesn't disturb raw sediment. And that would be upon completion of the project. Throughout construction, the erosion control needs to be up in accordance with this plan, sheet 9. And if it's not, then they're not complying with the alteration of terrain permit that will be sought and ultimately hopefully approved. And they wouldn't be compliant with the SWIP plans, the EPA's sedimentation control plan. So, no, the erosion control absolutely needs to be in place. And again, as part of the SWIP, there's a weekly inspection, or it's no less frequent than a week. You get a beautiful stretch in August with no rain, and they're still coming out every week. But if the rainstorm exceeds, I believe it's either a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, if there's a rainstorm event, there needs to be an inspection after every single one of those, even if it's over the weekend, to ensure the stability and integrity of this erosion control protections on the site.
And
that's per the permits and the approvals.
And that inspection is the responsibility of the contractor. Is that?
No, the state.
Correct. So that'll be probably an engineer from our office that has to run out and take a look at it.
Yeah.
They're not overly complicated, but they want to check for areas that are, have been destabilized from a rain event.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I was also just wondering, I haven't been on the site, but wasn't there a lot of excavation on a steep slope area? And if that's the case, I was wondering if they're going to be planting specific vegetation above and beyond maybe just grass to keep that area in its integrity and if so, and if not, what are the preventions from having that collapse in rainstorms? Or
Did you hear that as well, Spencer?
I did. So again, the site needs to be stabilized before the project is considered complete. And again, stabilization, I'm going to look for those notes while I'm kind of talking to you.
Can I ask a sort of a related question? Of the excavation that has taken place towards that would be the easterly side of the lot, how much of that is complete, and how, that really is starting to scour into the hillside, and my sense is a lot of the sediment that ended up in the flatland came from that part of the lot.
Yeah, I don't know if there was ever a permit or a plan for the excavation that has occurred, so I guess I can't speak to the limits or the steepness that is there and how it deviates from what it should or would be had plans been prepared. You know, it's exposed sediments, and when you have exposed sediments in a high rainfall event, you're going to have the water is going to carry stuff downhill. It's that simple. And so I can't really speak for the aggregate operation that occurred prior to our involvement. I recognize that there are ongoing issues on the site due to the aggregate operation or the quarry operation. All I can speak to is really the proposal and what's intended and how to basically avoid what's occurred on the site. So sheet D5, which is sheet 14 of 15, identifies several different both temporary and permanent erosion control measures that are to be utilized. So those are actually physical devices and mulch berms, earth sediment traps, turf reinforcement mats. So those are all things that you can point to on the ground to limit erosion. But then if you actually look at the very last note on sheet D6, 15 of 15, that outlines, it's actually a 28-point note, which outlines seed mixes, soil stability, when you can call a site stabilized, how to do that, whether it's the middle of summer or the middle of winter. Again, if these are the plans that are approved, the contractor has an obligation to adhere to these, because these are the contract that are generated, and that the contractor says, I will build it per plans. So there's seeding notes for temporary disturbed areas. So even if there's a loam pile or a material stockpile, that needs to be stabilized. We could do that with a fast seed, you can get peach fuzz on a loam pile in like less than 2 weeks and during the growing season with some of the seed varieties that they have. But then there's also permanently stabilized seed types. So we can delve into detail on those, or I don't know if the committee wants to kind of review those as part of their comments for the board. But that's what would need to be executed in order for the site to be considered stabilized, including those slopes that are cuts to the I guess the east and north of the lot.
Could you ask Mr. Tate about, because actually it's a little hard to read, I probably should have read it already, but is he speaking about the construction aggregate in these 28 points? And if not, does he know what that aggregate is going to be made up of?
Did you hear that question? What is the construction aggregate?
I did. So for what location, Christina?
Well, I am worried about, there was a lot of trees being cut down, and then there was a lot of excavating. So you've got a very open area that is very unstable right now. So I guess I'm wondering about, and I do have bigger plans of this. I'm having a hard time reading it tonight. But I guess I'm wondering about some of potential possibilities of the vegetation that can be added back, to not obviously where the houses are going to be, but I believe over 2 acres or more. I don't know how many acres were clear cut of trees and any other. So I guess I wouldn't mind some ideas more specific, especially for this board to maybe give some recommendations to the planning board on requests that should be considered for areas outside the physical construction of the homes that obviously have to be built to code. And I guess, the erosion issue where you say it has to be stable, does that mean all we have to do is plant grass everywhere and that means it's stable if it's covered in like grass?
So if it's grass, yes. Grass is actually a very tenacious. It's a very tenacious root structure to hold on to sediments. But if you actually look at note 13 on that last sheet 15 and 15, those are the considerations for stability of a site. So it needs to be one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prongs.
But there's really no mention of implementing some vegetation on the premises more than just grass. Natural trees or vegetation to, New Hampshire or anything like that in these plans presently.
Yeah, I mean, if that's a recommendation of the commission, we can do that.
No, I was just wondering
there's going to be around the site a vegetated buffer, which I believe is a requirement as part of the subdivision regulations, no less than 30 feet.
And are there specifics on what that's going to be? Just because obviously this board wouldn't want it to be an invasive species, and a lot of people, think with ivy been planted invasive species. I didn't realize were.
Oh yeah, it's illegal to plant invasive species. There's ag law about that, so you can't transport it, plant it, propagate it.
Okay.
So it certainly won't be that because we would be breaking the law. But if the board would like to see native plantings installed in specific locations, I guess I would request that they consider the cost implications associated with that. But that would be a recommendation that I'm sure we can get to.
What's your typical vegetation that you have seen planted around subdivisions like this? What is typically put in? What are things you're seeing?
Yeah, it depends on the site, right? So at this location, I know it was largely on like Hemlock Beach, Oak Pine Forest. So what I actually like to specify, if I was doing like a wetland restoration plan, is I actually like to plantings. A, they're expensive. B, you never know if it came from New Jersey or Pennsylvania or a nursery, 500 miles away. Sure, it might be a sugar maple, but it might not be the right ecotype, or maybe is used to its dormancy 2 weeks later or 2 weeks earlier. So what I find actually works best is transplanting from undisturbed sites on the same, or undisturbed locations on the same site. That way you can get, generally it's more cost effective. You get larger stock, and then you could also, depending on the size of the bucket or the loader or whatever, you can almost bring a whole plant community, including the seed bank, to a new location where it would be beneficial to take off. That's where we have the highest success rates. So we could spec, all sorts of native plantings that come from wherever, but if there was a, let's say a 8 by 12 or like a sheet of plywood size area that we can get in with a loader with a blade and basically scoop out a foot of it and pull up that whole mat, you could move that whole forest community. You almost can lay it like sod, sections of these 4 by 8 areas. And then if you have materials on sands like that, or plantings on sands, typically the root structures aren't getting that deep. So it might be a site to consider that, but we would try to match the surrounding forest type. So I do more hemlock, beech, oak, pine plantings.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just thought of one. So much of this is open gravel and sand and that's not likely to support a lot of vegetation. Is it going to be covered with some kind of loam?
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
going to have to be. Has to be loamed and seeded.
Okay.
And the vegetation needs to be successful. So it's not just put it down. It needs to succeed.
That's part of the contractor's obligation,
Correct.
to see that it succeeds, yeah.
What is the time frame on succeeding? I mean, is it written in, like if the commission wanted to do a 1-year check and a 2-year check with the contractor, if all the trees have died, God forbid. Is that a normal occurrence? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Or is it shorter?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly reasonable. I think actually while the AOT application is open, and I think we could do a little bit more reading on this, but I believe while the AOT approval is good, which I think is for 5 years, they can, as part of the AOT process, there could be an inspection by officials from the town whenever somebody pleases.
Okay, great. Great.
So, Spencer, I'm coming from a different perspective, and that is that right across the street there is an area that the town is putting a major function of water supply for the town. Will this, and so I know the aquifer is quite widespread there. Is this going to has anybody looked into how this will affect that aquifer?
In what regards?
Diminishing of the water supply.
From the water
well.
quality standpoint or quantity standpoint or?
Quantity. Quality,
Both.
we've done enough testing to know about the quality. It's the quantity. I would not want to have anything affect the quantity of water that would be able to be used by the town.
Yeah, so again, when the site is designed and engineered, what needs to be captured and infiltrated needs to match that which currently exists. Okay, so post-construction, if there's a rainstorm event that occurred tonight, let's say, it's 1 inch of rain, and then we hit fast forward on this, and a rainstorm event happens 5 years from now, and the site is completely constructed. The same amount of stormwater should be infiltrated onto the site, infiltrated through the site. The peak runoff needs to match the same, and the peak volume needs to be the same of that which currently exists. So the November 15th, 2023 time and the November 15th, 2028 post-construction time, those two water the runoff rate, the runoff volume need to remain the same. They need to be matched. And so that's the justification for the sizing of the infiltration basin and the depth of the infiltration basin. And that's ultimately what AOT is really approving. AOT is alteration of terrain. They want to see that the stormwater matches that which currently exists, regardless of how the terrain is transformed. So in terms of water quantity, I can tell you that it should be the same amount that infiltrates from that site is going to continue to infiltrate. Obviously, the runoff that occurs from the road, from rooftops, from the tops of cars, from hard-packed sidewalk, from anything that occurs, the rate's going to be faster, right? The rain will get to these structures faster, but the whole purpose of these structures is to slow the water down such that a certain volume infiltrates, and that volume is the same as that which currently occurs.
Has there been has there been any discussion with the hydrologist about those two areas, the well that we're putting in and your area coexisting?
There are no wells on their property, just so you know.
I know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know they're bringing in municipal water.
Yeah.
But I'm just concerned that with all the construction, with the septic issues, is that going to have any effect on our town well? So,
Right. So that hasn't been. I guess I can't answer that specifically, but I would be, I suppose, reluctant to put my foot down on that, because should the installation of the well remove the other one, this is a permitted use for this site.
Yeah.
Okay, and the density is an allowed density for this zone. I guess I would wonder if the consideration of the well had any thought on this being a potential use of this site. So while I recognize your consideration of the well and the water quality that will occur, I guess the inverted thought would be, well, was it considered when the well siting happened what a surrounding land use, which is otherwise legal to do, what would happen should they go ahead and do it,
okay.
right? And what the implications of that would be. Does that make sense? I guess my
That
counterpoint
does
to
make
that.
sense. Okay, that does make sense. I just am, I'm on the select board, so I have to be concerned about, we're putting a major amount of money into that well, and this is fairly close to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I recognize that concern. Septics, the idea of on-site septics came up last night. But the septics that are proposed here are going to be no dissimilar from ones that maybe service your properties. You're going to go through a sand filter and down into the aquifer, just as everything else in the entire watershed does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody been?
I do have one more question. I think it's more out of curiosity than anything. There's a narrow spit of wetland shown that goes to the east and to the northeast across lots 21, 20, and 19. Is that just as wet as the major body of the wetland, and not year round, or does that flow? Is it gradient?
No, so there's no flow or stream or water course associated with it. It's really just it's the drainage way. It's kind of a poorly drained saddle
Just a big
that
puddle.
goes through there. I guess to describe wetness is kind of there's a difficult metric to use. I suppose the hydraulic regime for the flatter areas, it would be probably more I suppose saturated and subject to occasional flooding or backwatering where it's flatter, but where it's coming down that slope, I think it would just be the saturation to the surface. You can think of like a seepy side slope. I don't know if you ever see those. If you're hiking a trail or something, you can just kind of see water percolating out onto the surface and running off. But no, there's no stream corridor, there's no water course. I'd say it's partially less subject to flooding than the larger wetland body down in the flats.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
I do have a question regarding the same lots, 19, 20, and 21. I'm looking at the picture of the proposed potential buildings on the lots. Is there enough room to have proper setbacks and such to put the septic systems in with the buildings there and the wetland in the area?
Yeah, so it's certainly tight. Again, we brought these down to the minimum size needed so that we could maximize the amount of open space to remain, which is kind of the theory behind cluster developments. And if you go to, I'm not sure what sheet you're looking at. Was there a specific sheet number that you're saying is the boxes are on?
DRN, I think?
Well, I'm looking at sheet 3 of 15,
Oh,
which designates those little wetlands a little bit, but then also looking, kind of comparing it to
DRN.
DRN, yeah, dash DV2. I'm trying to kind of overlay them and just,
DRN-DV2 is where you mapped out the housing.
oh, okay.
Spencer.
Yeah, the scale's a
Yeah,
little bit
okay.
higher.
Yeah.
So I can speak to that a little bit. Let's see if there's a good example. So those areas that are shown, let's see, do I also have the open space? Yeah. So sheet 01, which is sheet 8, actually has the setbacks. Because this was granted approval, I believe a special exception for the cluster subdivision type, it's afforded some leniencies regarding setbacks, such that you can kind of collapse everything into a small area. Primarily, it removes the frontage requirement, and it also reduces the side yard depth to, I believe, 10 feet. So it can be no less than 10 feet, and buildings need to be separated from by 25. So if you put one building on each one of those lots, that would be a de facto 12 and a half feet. If you were perfectly centered on the shared lot line. And if you go to the sheet, I guess P1 or any of the subdivision sheets, the rectangles that go over the septics. So that's a 4,000 square foot area, which is a state subdivision requirement. It's a septic reserve area. 4,000 square feet is pretty large. Your average home in New Hampshire that's two-story colonial, let's say, is around, modern day is around 2,800 square feet. So if you pictured your average, brand new home, and put it all in one 2D layout, that would still be smaller than the rectangles shown to facilitate the 4K boxes for the septic areas. Typically, for septics, for 3 to 3, we're looking around 900 square feet per dwelling unit on these. So we'd be looking at maybe a quarter of those rectangles for the actual septic design area. But for the sake of state subdivision, you need to demonstrate that there's at least 4,000 square feet that complies, that's on the lot, and that has a test pit in or around it. So that's what that illustrates. So I guess it's a really long-winded way to say that, yes, those lots are certainly small, but we confirm that everything can fit, all the necessary infrastructure, a suitable house, and a septic system on each one of those lots.
Good. All right, thank you. We appreciate your time. We took a lot of your evening.
Yeah, thank you. I know this is big news in Newport, so I guess I'll await recommendations or any sort of comments for the planning board at the December 12th meeting, something in that realm.
You'll get the
I guess let me know if there's a question that comes up in the interim, either directly or through Christina. I'm happy to, answer questions.
Thank you, Spencer.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a nice night.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that?
It's on the back of this.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm sure there's a fair amount we need to discuss, but we've got a lot of agenda, and I don't know if we can actually do some of that discussion out of camera's reach in non-public. I don't know if that's permitted.
Or a special meeting.
Or a special
No,
meeting.
you can't. If
Well,
you're
how
gonna
about special meeting then?
It has to be
Or,
public.
If you're
even
gonna
if we
make
can do-
recommendations, and I think you can make a lot.
well, we're not talking about recommendations. I'm just
We'll just
discussing.
come to a conclusion as to what we want to recommend. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I was first going to just start talking about discuss what we heard and what we think, then get to recommendations. But
Actually, it's funny, if I may, the water supply, they're actually importing water to the area from the well and the The pond, Gilman Pond.
Gilman Pond, I know that.
Yeah, they're actually, and that's going to percolate through the septic systems into the
Back
aquifer.
into
So
the
I think
aquifer.
there's actually might be a net increase in
In
charged.
In actual water.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think it would be a bad idea
Yeah.
right.
that the town just call up the hydrologist who did, there must have been a company who did the hydrology for the well, right? There is a company or some engineering firm. And I think
Yeah, well, who was our
I don't know
engineer
who.
on that?
there is an engineering
Was it
firm that
Weston
did
and
the
Sampson, or-
hydrology. Might be worth
I think it was.
might be a phone call to them,
Yeah.
just ask them some questions, how they see this as an impact.
Yeah, I'd be more concerned about the water quality impact.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my thinking.
Because there's going to be more road runoff. There's going to be more traffic, car traffic, people with paint cans. Who knows? It's going to go into this stormwater collection system, and then it'll drain into the ground.
I want to go back to your point. On the other hand, we are concerned, and I'm
I
concerned
have a
about
list
the
of
draw off
I
of
have a
water
list of things.
from Gilman
They should.
Pond. I mean, that's going to draw down
Yeah, you can ask.
somewhat, I think, and I want to know about that.
Well, the more houses you put in the building,
Yeah.
The town, the more water.
Some of that is
Yeah,
behind-
yeah.
42
Well, Spring
over here.
Street, yeah.
I hope they know how much we're going to charge them for hookups. So,
And naturally, some of that is beyond our purview, but I think the aquifer and how this could affect the aquifer is certainly one of the recommendations we can make to planning.
Legitimate question.
I think one of the recommendations we need to make to planning is find out what is the resolution, if there will be a resolution to the case number on the wetlands degradation. It was assigned a file, and that was to be my first point under old business, that I talked with Jeff Blacharczyk, and case file number 2023-02555 is the case that's sitting on his desk or at the land, the land resources desk person, whoever does that. So that's an open case right now, still on the degradation or pretend what was presumed to be degradation of the wetland. So I think we need to discuss, but I think we should get to this. I don't know how, it's sort of at the pleasure of the board, how you'd like to proceed to discuss this, finalize some recommendations to planning.
Yeah, well, we need to come up with our list of recommendations and then vote on
Yeah.
what we're going to submit.
I think we've covered that in new business, which you moved up. Now the appropriate thing would be to go to old business, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but in terms of what
What
we're
you're
going
gonna
to do with
this.
all this.
We have to have the recommendations before December 12th.
Yeah, I think we've got time, but I'm just asking what will be the process.
Oh, okay. No,
I'm just saying what the
Yeah.
process, because I think we've talked about this and we've used a lot of time so far,
Laura
so
might have some.
I think we need to discuss it.
Could I please add a question? And that is, might you suggest as one of your recommendations to the planning board to have a peer review as an oversight to the project, because it's something that has never been? Christina has gone to workshops, and she will be able to explain that better than I can.
When you say a peer review
what
and
I'm
a
saying.
project that has never been,
Well, have we
In
had
this town.
Have we ever had a clustered development in the town?
No. No, so a peer review, and many towns utilize it extensively, if not exclusively. They use it anytime there's a large-scale project like this, anything more than.
but a peer review is what?
So a peer review is that we have absolute discretion to have a someone like Gwen or Moose, I forget the name of that, Moose Ecological, whatever, have oversight over the natural resources on this property.
So it would basically be
They would do a review at the expense of the developer, and it would be implemented during like the vegetation, not just at their well. Or so peer reviews are done. A lot of them are done with the construction and the wetlands on here to make sure everything is exactly in order. Do I think they have absolutely a ton of stuff in order? Yes, this is a very well-devised plan. Do I feel like they have the conservation part well played? No, I don't think they have any. I think it's the littlest. So I would say.
So one thing we can consider also to throw in recommendations is a peer review, which would be a independent review of the plan, the site, the impact on the environmental impact. It's basically an environmental impact study.
And how we want the vegetation to be put back in. Like,
Yeah,
if they are
with
going to take them off
recommendations,
site, I
all
think
that
that's
sort of
great. But Gwen's the expert, say, for
Yeah.
example,
Okay.
to put that's it's
Yeah.
just an idea, and I think it's an
So it's
excellent-
available. So
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
What would that do? I think it's a good idea. My concern would be, what effect would that have on timing of construction and things of that nature? It's another hurdle.
It could.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
for example, and Ken Moreau talks about this extensively because we've had people that consult us that come in because we've never done it. For example, Hanover. Now it is Hanover. They have a staff of 7 of me and then 7 underlings of me. And every major construction project, they outsource it at the expense of the developer to engineers and above and beyond their huge staff. And then you've got just me on a project like this that is very overwhelming, and we don't, and I'm even talking, I don't want like them to
Okay.
have 25,000.
well, we know that there is something called a peer review, which
Yes.
is an environmental impact independent. It's available for us to make a recommendation of
Absolutely.
planning.
And you
so-
could have a limit on the price. You could say it shouldn't
Yeah.
exceed if you think it's too cumbersome.
Those are some details we can sort of work out if
Right.
we really want to pursue that.
I think the question at hand was how are we going to come to a conclusion of what we want to do?
Yeah, so again, I think we're going to have set aside some time for us to have to meet to just discuss all this and formulate our plans. You know, unless we take the rest of the night to do what we can, but
And then we'd have to,
To have a meeting to walk.
yeah.
right, or defer everything to December.
So let's put that as an action item and let's move on. I absentmindedly missed an agenda item, which was minutes review. Everybody have a chance to look at the minutes that were sent out by Christina. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.
And prepared by Maura. Thank you, Maura. I read them. I sent my one recommendation back to Maura. It was really
And I did not correct that, so do you remember what it was?
yeah.
Was it?
Jeff
Gwen.
Blacharczyk's name was not.
No, that was another, it was
Dave
Gwen,
Blacharczyk.
I believe that was.
Oh, Gwen. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Gwen Gallagher, not Gwen Gallagher.
No.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes.
With that change.
Wait a minute, we're fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. The motion would be to change
With the
with change Gwen to Gwyn. Anybody want to propose give us a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes as written with the change,
Anybody second?
the name change.
Seconded?
Okay. Any other corrections, additions, deletions, things that need to be discussed about the minutes as they were prepared? Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, now old business, the North Main Street gravel pit, and we've kind of been through that already. just one more time to state that there is a open case at DES. There was 2 cases essentially for this gravel pit, and one was the alteration of terrain, but then there was a wetlands complaint. So that's at least the wetlands complaint is open. I don't know about the alteration terrain, what happened with that. Forest management plan for the Pinnacle. I just keep this on because someday we'll do something with it, but I'm not ready to do
Okay.
anything with it tonight.
I spoke with Susan Johnson,
Uh-huh.
and she contacted Jolly and Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
and the family has no forest. We talked about cutting trees or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's no plans at all to do anything on that property.
Okay, on the Johnson
On the
easement.
Johnson property.
Okay. And that would kind of get to annual parcel monitoring. So that's a great segue into annual parcel monitoring. So did you, are they all set to have us come up and walk their property sometime?
I didn't even mention that. I guess I just forgot.
That's where you were going. Okay. My sense is
Sorry, my
that
bad.
they don't, would be happy to have us walk the property and not be opposed.
I can contact.
The only other question is if they want to be part of that, because we got to get these parcels monitored. I'd like to get them monitored before snow.
It makes it easier. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So are we ready to sort of identify a date or time, or do we want to divide and conquer, like have a couple of us walk one property or a couple properties and a pair of us do another? Don?
Well, as much as I hate to say it, my knees are taking a turn for the worse. I had surgery scheduled for January 9th, so I'm going to...
How convenient.
Well, I'm more than happy to take on some of the smaller properties.
What about my lumbago?
Well, if I could show you how much my knees hurt.
What would work best for you? And we could certainly exempt you, you know.
I'm happy to help with the wells and the yeomans
Okay.
easements. The Barton and the Johnson together are, it's a 4-hour
Yeah,
stamp, if not longer. So
okay.
I think Linda's usually done that. I can go check the past records.
Barton and
I think at least the Johnson, or no?
well, last year
Well, we did that.
Gunter, myself,
Oh, so it
Well,
wasn't
Ken and
like that.
Linda.
Ken and Linda, we went
Oh,
out.
it was.
Yeah.
So I bet you they'd be willing to do those two.
Okay. Well, I'll reach out to them and see what.
I'll do the wells and Yeomans with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm happy to do those. I just
Depends on when you want to do them.
All right. Well, why don't we leave it up to Don and Gunter to do the wells and yeomans, including now the mysterious Ray
Raven
Holden.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
And you can work with Jerry Hagebusch. You feel like getting up into the deep woods up there in the Johnson?
I'm too old.
Well, that's the way my knees feel, right?
All right.
Next year, I'm more than happy to take on all 4
All right.
properties.
Well, I'll
My
check.
knees are
I'll
replaced.
check with Lyndon, Ken, and see if they're interested, and I'll try to get out one of these days to walk at least Barton. The part of the boundary between Barton and Johnson we weren't so concerned about because it's just if you're looking at one property and walking, you're kind of looking at the other property.
Right.
Was that completely tagged, or were there parts of that not tagged?
We tagged the entire perimeter of both properties,
okay. Yes.
Okay.
but not necessarily with the LCIP markers or L-chip markers. We ran out of them towards the back of the Johnson
Okay.
property, and but we did tag them with surveyor's tape, pink surveyor's tape. And Gunther was right there with us. I'm sure he'd be happy to be your guide
Okay.
back there because I think we'd be able to find it pretty easily. I have.
Just got to get
All
the
right.
map out again.
Well, I'll work
Yeah,
with
one-
you, Gunther, and
one
see if
base
there's a
of-
time also. And again, I'll check with Ken and Linda.
I thought we tagged most of those.
Do we want to do take a little hatchet out and put some old-fashioned blazes on some?
Yeah, or
trees?
red paint.
Yeah,
That's another.
all right.
We did find blazes on almost the entire parcel. And
Yeah.
again, the surveyor's tape is there.
Mhm.
If you take a map, I think, and
Okay.
take a map and go into it with you.
And naturally,
Yeah, probably
looking for
Yeah, we're
any
pretty good.
degradation
Yeah.
or, okay.
Yeah, we marked.
All right, so everything up off of Blueberry Ridge Road, Gunter and Don are going to handle.
And we'll tag the Wells property.
Yeah,
I don't know that the number of tags that we have or that I have. I don't know if Christina has any more of those L-chip tags.
We do have tags.
Do you still have more of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I'll grab
Plenty
a
names.
bunch, and then I'll work out with anyone else who can get up to the town forest, and I'll try to get out there in the next couple weeks. We did send out letters to the abutters.
We did, I think sometime in November, is that still happening? or-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we can get this done in the next few
We'll go
weeks.
home and talk to them.
And I think if it's
Yeah.
slightly
Right,
after.
exactly.
All right, good. So we've divided and conquered that. Warrant article, zoning changes to wetlands and buffer zones. And I think listening a little bit tonight to Spencer, and having heard him when he presented to the zoning board, it was reinforced what he said to the zoning board. In a manner of speaking, he said, it's too bad for you, Newport. We're within the letter of the law.
Right.
You guys don't have buffers, so we don't have to,
Yeah,
They can build right up to the edge of the boundary.
Yeah.
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 There were some informal discussions between Dawn and I, and we kind of rethought the idea of barging full bore into a study committee, subcommittee that involves other boards right now. Our thinking is that maybe we got to do a lot of more research. Gunter, I think, already went and
Yeah.
pulled off some zoning ordinances from what towns?
Sunapee and Newberry.
And I went online after
This is, they
the
were online.
after the conference. I went online and
She knows Jeff Littleton.
Oh.
I mean, it's pretty-
pulled
you
off
could talk to her and just give you some,
the Hampton, New Hampshire ordinances, which are really quite good. And so I think we may want to keep the subcommittee to the three of us right now. And really in the next couple to 3 months do some serious research to then present to the planning board and expand, I think, if that seems like a reasonable approach.
It seems like it to me. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, especially after going to the NHACC.
yeah.
There's one thing,
Could the board look at the steep slope too? I think if we could get two zoning ordinances on the docket, maybe at the same time, or do you think it's too much to do come up with a steep slope recommendation based on others in the area?
I don't think it's too much, but I looked at our own ordinances in Newport, and we have 3 sentences comprising 4 lines talking about wetlands. So, and not just steep slopes. I think we may really want to fundamentally look at what we would like to see the ordinances, the ordinance for. Both steep slope and wetlands all, I mean, I think we got to do a lot of work.
There's a lot,
one
you
thing
could
that
have a whole sentence.
Yes.
came away with a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
that we need to work with,
Who's the chair of that subcommittee?
I guess I am.
Says so right in the minutes.
So, anytime you want to sort of formulate the first study group,
Okay.
study meeting. Okay. Follow up to action items, town manager Paul Brown. I think this got sort of passed over from last time. I think that was really just a reassurance from somebody in the know. Barry, is Paul aware and ready to?
Yeah, he's aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, could I have one? Paul texted me this evening. If you don't mind, I could read it to you.
Mm-hmm.
He said for Conservation Commission tonight, I have not heard back from the attorney about the easement acquisition. And I'm assuming he's talking about the Raymond Holman
No.
easement.
I don't believe that's the case.
Oh, then I don't know what he's, do you want
Although
me to ask
maybe
him?
it is, because there's another easement that I talked to him about with Kenny.
Was he consulting an attorney about it?
Yes.
Okay, then it must be that one. He didn't mention, I just thought, I saw easement here and he didn't. Okay, well, do you want me to ask him?
Well, the Ray Holden easement, it was really just about the wording in the deed,
Correct.
which I think originally was written miswritten, if you will,
Doesn't the town?
including it included L-chip in the deed,
Yeah.
and that was a mistake. The L-chip program wasn't involved in that easement.
But the easement didn't take into account the Conservation Commission, did it? Wasn't it the town?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means.
It all goes back to last year's monitoring of the properties when Jerry Hagebusch said, well, what about the acres on the, I guess that might have been the east side of Hurd Road, and we said, well, we don't know about it. And when we went back and looked at the easement, that was granted at a different time. The 4 L-chip properties that we do monitor were 1991 and somewhere around 1995 or 98. Barbara Yeomans, I think, granted an easement deed on this directly to the town. But in the deed, it I think, has L-chip mentioned in the deed.
It's not.
And the question was, does it make sense to get that deed rewritten, and what's all hoops need to go? And that was what that's all about on this. So,
Yeah, when I talked to, just if I may add to that, when I talked to Paul, when Kenny and I talked to Paul about the potential easement on Rowell Road, he said he did not interpret it the way the state interprets it. And he doesn't see, my understanding is he doesn't see a need to make any changes. So, but it's more, from what I'm observing and hearing from the state, it's more a matter of it would clarify things for future generations if we got that wording out of there.
That's a good point.
And it doesn't change any of the legalities of the deed.
yeah. Okay. Well, we'll roll that over because I think we need.
He said it was about the one you discussed.
Okay.
And he said he didn't remember the name, so I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what he wanted me to relay.
Thank
So
you.
You're welcome.
we'll roll that over, but I think our position from the Conservation Commission, we'd like that deed written very clearly. It's only minor changes, but I think it really, I don't know what hoops have to be jumped through to get that clarified, if it's illegal, if there's cost to the town involved, or that sort of stuff. So we'll sort of approach Paul again, or I don't know if that's something that's worthy to bring back to the board of select.
About the NRI.
No, just the Ray Holden easement and getting the wording clarified for future generation, for our children's children's children, so to speak.
So when little Larry and little Don and little Gunther.
Okay,
Mine a little anyway.
Yeah.
community outreach. I'll give this to Dawn. I think that is about maybe having organize a presentation sometime for the community.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to our last conversation, I had mentioned that I talked to Doe Gladders, who works for the UNH Cooperative Extension. He's more than happy to give a presentation. I think the issue at this point is the logistics of locale and advertising it so that we get some kind of a turnout, et cetera, all those different little things. So, I mean, I didn't do anything with it, but
Yeah. Well, I did a little because there was some talk about that the library may have had a presentation on to the public on invasive species.
yeah.
I wasn't aware. I don't know how those things get. So I went to the library the other day, April 26th, at 6 p.m. So this past July, they actually did have a talk. It wasn't specifically targeted to invasive species. The talk on July 12th was Go Native, incorporating native plants into your landscape, but it did touch on invasives. It was presented to the public through the UNH Extension, their Speakers Bureau. And I think the book club about that time had been reading Braiding Seagrass, Sweetgrass, which is, I guess, got them going. But that's they're going to have a follow-up this coming April. The library is planning to have Braiding Sweetgrass. Okay. I'm not sure. They're planning another, April 16th, 5 p.m. At the Richard Free Library. My topic on how to create a stronger connection to land through understanding ecosystems better, blah, 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 blah. So the library is already going to have somebody. So we may want to work with the library.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe something collaborative the same night, or maybe it can be part of a series of a couple things in the springtime.
Mm-hmm.
It got us talking. I was talking with Justine, the librarian, head librarian, and it's not uncommon in this town that a lot of good events, things you'd like to attend, are competing for because they're all booked on the same night. So, trying to work collaboratively with them. And so, I don't know who wants to take the mantle on this. I can go back and work with Justine because I've already had a conversation with her.
That's fine with me. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not
Well,
I'll be happy to give it to you,
ownership to
but
Well, I'm going to be stepping back onto the board at the library
okay.
as a trustee,
Yeah.
because Nancy Wilmot is stepping down, and I'll be taking her place again as treasurer, which she took mine. So
Well,
I'm going to go to a meeting in December.
I
Sounds
just
like he's
heard that,
volunteering.
I just heard
Hey, I'm going to be there.
a delegate, so I'm going to give this to you. And I think working with the library, again, as a collaborative effort on that particular night, or maybe
Yeah.
a series of talks over, every couple weeks in April. And one of them may be a presentation by Doe Gladders or something.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a statement that there is someone via Zoom, Lisa Hitchcock. I don't know if she wants to speak or not. I just want you to make aware there's someone that is logged in.
Is it?
I
I don't know how that works if
You
somebody
just would
logs
ask
in
her.
as a.
She's logged in with her voice monitor on, so you could ask her. I don't know why she's here,
Well,
but
just, you could do it, just
I
ask
could-
her.
Lisa, would you like to make a statement or question?
No, I didn't have any. I was just listening to the meeting.
Oh, no worries. Okay, I saw you
Good.
log in. Absolutely fine. I
Thanks
just
for joining.
didn't want you ignored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are we done with that part?
I think we're done, yeah.
Okay, because we talked about communications and community outreach. We're going to be interviewing for the new town manager. This Friday we have, we're going to Zoom with 3 potential candidates just to get to know them. Then we'll invite one or two here to go through the town, and we're going to do that on the night of Twas. What do you mean by Twas?
Twas the night before Christmas thing?
Well, yeah, it's the
That's
thing
the
when they
9th?
have the
Yeah,
stuff out here. And
I think that's going on the December 9th. Yeah.
Ninth. And so we're going to have either one or two, they'll come and we want to sell the town a little bit to them.
Uh-huh.
But at the same point, part of what we're going to be talking with all the candidates about is how are they going to reach out to the community and the subdivisions of our structure here so that he is well aware of what's going on. And one of the things that I would want to see take place would be to have him have a strong working knowledge of the Conservation Committee.
Good.
Because
Yeah.
I can tell you in the past we were kind of frowned upon. We don't want that to happen again. I think we need to make inroads. My expectation is that this individual, whoever he or she is, will, develop some sort of a plan for communication and follow through with that. And so that I want to bring that to your attention.
Good, thanks, Barry. Yeah, I think we're trying to work our part by showing up
Yes, you are.
some of the
You're
other
doing a good job.
meetings,
Yeah.
and
In the past, I always felt like we were, use the term, held down a bit.
yeah,
We weren't,
well,
they,
It's a great town. Great town with great natural
yeah,
resources.
and so I want the person who comes in, if it's any of those, to,
yeah, good.
because I'll tell you, we are doing the interviews. One thing we've all said though, and I want you folks and the public to be aware, we're not going to settle. It's going to have to be somebody that we really are, that they're going to come in and be able to do some things. And, we're talking about a vision for the town, what do we want, and what do we want our leadership to do. So I want this committee to be a part of that, commission to be a part of that.
Well, and I'm not sure if Linda had asked at previous meetings, if any of us would be, if this committee would be represented on the search committee, but I think just,
Well, we're at a point now where it's to the board,
yeah,
okay? And we had 4 candidates recommended, one person pulled out due to family issues that came up. So we have 3 left.
yeah,
And as I said, this Friday we're going to Zoom with all of them. And it's kind of a get to know, give and take things. We have 6 questions that we want to put forth that were different than what the search committee had asked them about. So,
well, good. I appreciate, and I certainly appreciate the liaison that you're providing. So, are all 3 going to be in town on Twas the night?
not necessarily all
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. We're keeping our options open.
All right. Communications. 3 of us attended the annual meeting. I don't know if any one of the 3 wanted review or discuss any of the things that.
Well, I
went on.
thought it was a very good meeting, going to the different, call it classes, if you will. And I think the one that stood out with me the most was working, basically the topic was communicating with your town leadership or planning and zoning, working with other boards. I think that was, because
This was the title of, both Gunter and I attended this.
building a relationship with other boards. And I think that was very enlightening because other attendees spoke with issues that they have had with the other boards, others that had very positive connection with the other boards. But I think, Larry, what you were saying is going to the planning board meetings or zoning board meetings, just rotating and getting to know them and getting them to know us is very important. And I think, Barry, you're talking about it with the town manager, to be well informed what
And
the
for
other
them,
boards, the functions
but I
are.
want the town manager to be well informed about
Yeah.
what we're doing.
And I think that was very worthwhile, that, it's not up to us to propose all these ordinances and so on, but work with our fellow other boards that we can maybe look at different things like a wetland buffer, or that was just one that obviously was in tonight's conversation.
I think this touch base on public outreach as well.
Yes, it
We
did.
had a little bit of that. It was.
Yeah.
I can make a copy of this, or did you get extra copies?
No, see what I got. I brought my whole folder
I
here.
thought I saw you steal a whole pile. Geez, my memory isn't all
I
that
forget
bad.
which one I wanted
Well,
to.
maybe your knees are shot, but your brain is not.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll give one too.
Keep the select board involved, informed. Good.
Don and I attended a session presented by a conservation commissioner from the town of East Kingston, explaining how they were able to push through a $4 million
On the order of 4 million, yeah.
bond for the purchase of conservation easements and all, which was helpful. But I forget the other one I went to. Anyway,
Went through one to the fundamentals of conservation commission.
And it was basically Jeff Littleton, the way he spoke to us here. It was a duplicate of that.
No, that was the NRI one.
Yes,
You went to-
it
yeah.
was absolutely that.
Okay, yeah.
But it was very good, just, learning, and the Valley News has had some good late articles on things about the
that was
garden,
good. Yeah.
eliminating invasives, and then this one,
I saw that, yeah.
the buckthorns.
Oh my gosh.
So I thought I'd bring these
Yeah,
in,
get
and then
those, yeah.
It was right. It came out right after
we,
that gentleman came and spoke his piece to us. Yeah.
yes, about some pretty good reading, and we're not alone with having these
Yeah.
critters.
Oh no.
No, absolutely. No. These are good articles. So.
Yes, it was very educational.
Yeah.
Henry Homeyer.
Yep.
Okay, and how to attempt to remove them, get them when they're young.
Because then they come right out, he said.
Yeah,
He said they pull right out when they were young.
Right.
And if you don't, they're impossible to get out then.
Yeah.
yeah. It's really
Okay.
wasted.
Any other thing? All I can say is I've been on the board now and been able to attend 2 of the annual meetings, and they've been invaluable. They're really good. So next year we should try to get as many of our board to get to the meetings as we can. We had a financial statement given to us last month, and we didn't get to it, so we have it tonight. Did everybody, you have yours from last month? Okay, good. I can't read these, other than the fact that it does look like some of the expenditures are still coming from our fund and not from our
Well, we're,
working budget. Don?
One of the things we did talk to Paul about, actually he brought it up when Kenny and I met with him. He asked if this should have been taken from our operating budget.
Yeah.
And I asked, this expenditure was in 2023, and if it was in this fiscal, the 23-24 fiscal year.
So that was $120 for the vests.
Yeah, and he said yes, and he
Okay.
said yes, it was during 23-24. So as far as I know, it should have come from our
operating budget.
operating budget.
So you've got the vests, and what about your checks? Do you know if he put those in the operating budget, right? Okay, I'll check the vests. And then the checks came to 180, I believe.
As a matter of protocol, we probably ought to take a vote on the expenditure relative to the tuition for 3 of us going to the annual meeting. That was $180, $60 per,
Mhm.
and there were three of us. So would somebody like to move to make an expenditure from the operating budget?
So moved.
Anybody second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion of, do we think it was outrageous money or?
I think it's clearly very
I
reasonable.
don't know, I think it was a pretty
Money
good
well
lunch they
spent.
served,
Yeah.
leftovers.
Okay.
It was,
All in
no,
favor
it
of
was-
an
30 bucks
extent?
right there, right?
I was surprised.
And
How
again,
much
this is a
food-
little bit the cart before the horse because the money is already gone. But I think all in favor of the expenditure of, well, the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? None. Okay, so $180 also from current operating budget. Okay. New business. We moved the Brunel subdivision already. So that brings us to Dawn. Possible conservation easement for acquisition.
So we kind of touched base on this already. A neighbor says she wants to get 50 acres, pristine acres, into conservation. She's planning on selling her home. My understanding, I found out today, is that she's already contacted 3 realtors. I'm a little afraid that we might be behind the 8 ball. She's on the elderly side. She wants to sell her house. She's living in Summercrest. I had a conversation with her about the mechanics of it. She would like to give the conservation easement to the Conservation Commission. Paul said he didn't see that as a problem, but he wasn't sure. I think he wanted to talk to the lawyer about it. He said we could pay for the development of the easement, and if she's amenable, we could come up with the easement ourselves, the deed restrictions, and just let her. I think that would be the most expediting it for her, minimizing the amount of work that she needs to do. So,
Don, can I ask you a question? Do you know if her lawyer is Howard Dunn? Because I've been playing tag team with Howard about someone looking to give the Conservation Commission land. And
well, isn't that a coincidence?
Did you, are they, so I'll try again him. He's called me, I've called him back, and he wants guidance on how to move forward with a conservation easement. I'm wondering if he is her lawyer.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Oh, it is, so it's the same person.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna call Howard again tomorrow.
I was unaware that she had.
So
The
yeah,
last
it's,
conversation I had with her, she mentioned that she would probably touch base with him.
so I believe that 50 acres is still in, it's still plausible. I don't think it's gonna be sold if that's what you were insinuating.
She's gotten, she's getting, what do I want to call them? She's getting prices, so to speak, or estimates on what the sale price could be.
Oh, for the 50 acres.
Well, actually, she owns a house with 5 acres. She co-owns a 50-acre parcel. They butt up against each other. She wants to put the easement on the 50 acres.
Okay.
There's no structures whatsoever on the 50 acres.
Well, I'll call Howard anyways.
Just a question, and knowing that, is there access to the 50 acres that does not require going over the 5?
Yes, there's a deeded right-of-way, I believe.
Oh.
The way I read the tax map, I can't tell if the parcel comes right down the railroad or there's a deeded right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at her driveway, which is in your backyard,
I've
you
snowshoed.
could probably you've snowshoed it. Well, then you've probably gone up the easement.
Well, we kind of went up the driveway and
Is it
up.
like a trail? Is it like
Yeah.
a trail? A little
We
trail?
snowshoed it one year, and we started following somebody else's tracks. We figured, oh, there's the way out, and we just kept doing these big circles, and it was getting darker and darker, and the kids were all at home, and the only concern Mary had if we had to stay the night in the forest was that the Shagans would have to come out and find us. And we'd never live it down.
Oh, geez.
We used all our skills. We kept looking for going down. We figured, well, if you go downhill, you'll finally
we're
Come to a pond or something.
sorry, Larry, I'm busy right now.
So, yeah. So it's sort of like, I'm hearing you say we need to move fairly.
That was my,
expeditiously,
in a
because-
convoluted way, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if,
Because if she hears she can get so much money for the 50 acres, she might say, I think I'll take that.
She might change her mind.
Yeah.
I've told her that, you know, I've been working on this with her for several years, and I've told her that, you know, it's going to reduce the sale price of the house because you're giving away the development rights, and she seems fine with it.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I think most of the money.
but I just think
goes to the house.
she has a little troubles dealing with, I think at this point, with things that are like business matters.
Yeah, sure. So if we did it,
I think it's
For
more.
her.
I think it's more.
Yeah.
In her mind is she really doesn't want to be bothered. She's
Yeah.
got, you know,
Yeah.
at this point she just wants to cruise into the.
Yeah.
Cruise, right. So if we did it, yeah, I think that would be the way to.
So what would probably be the next logical step? Trying to get that conversation with the attorney first?
I would say, Sean, maybe you should be present for it. I mean, I can get him on the phone first and then maybe see if I can make a meeting with Howard. You might be more well versed, I'm sure you are, than me on this, although I could take all those questions and see if I can answer them and then go to legal, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah. Yeah, I don't even know the location. I mean, you just said Rowell Hill, but I just know I've been playing tag team with Howard, and I'll get on that. I didn't
Okay.
realize it was so long in the works with you prior. I guess I thought it was something new.
Well, she no. Well, I mean, I've been talking to her for a couple of years, but she finally moved into Summercrest about a year ago, I want to say, and she has really not spoken much about selling the house. But I think at this point, she's decided she's going to sell. But she just see if she's got Howard Dunn working on it, then she's a little more anxious than I thought she might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good. My take is if we want to develop an easement, we need to meet and do that
and do that.
and find out what we want.
Maybe we're going to have an extra meeting or something and talk about the issues with tonight's presentation. That could be time to talk about
Yeah.
things.
I was going to suggest that we, if anybody has access to any of the deeds on properties that there are easements on, review those, and those are, I mean, like Raymond Holden easement. Holden easement to me is got language that would be a good template for us to work from. There might be some things like, as I mentioned to Paul and Kenny, you know, some of our deeds allow agriculture. They don't specify what type or the limits of it.
Yeah.
Somebody could put greenhouses on them, the way I read these deeds. So we might want
Yeah.
to try to reel that kind of thing in a little bit. But yeah, I think if we're going to have a special meeting, maybe we want to tackle two issues at the same time.
There's good resources too, like the Land Conservation Trust has some drop downs,
Mhm.
and I was looking at some the RSAs regarding planning board, and the state website I was on also had drop downs on RSAs regarding conservation easements and things like that. So, all right. Our action at the end of the night is to develop a time and place to meet again. Any other new business that people want to bring before this august body? This is sort of going back to community outreach, but the Newport Times came.
Very nice
Yeah.
article, Larry.
Nice job.
Well, I was really the nice picture, Don, in the background, but again, for the public, we put our best out there.
Put the good-looking guy in the
picture.
front.
There's one good-looking guy. So I encourage people in town to pick up the Times and read all. There's a lot of good stuff there.
And thank you
But,
for doing that for us.
Yeah.
well, it was kind of fun.
Everybody received that,
Yeah, it came in the mail.
Mailed everybody.
Yeah, this one I grabbed just yesterday.
Just
I think, from
recommending
the
people read it.
yeah.
Yes. Well, read the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Okay, good. Well then, action items. I think I'm going to reverse these in a minute. December 20th is our next date for a meeting, and with the holidays, I wouldn't mind taking that.
Can we change it,
Night
reschedule it?
Well, that might be rescheduled to just a meeting that is very specifically tailored to the two things we were just talking about.
13th, move it up a week.
Well, you could,
Or-
so you have, if you want to continue it on a Wednesday, which you don't have to, you obviously, and I am actually moving up the ZBA meeting for that exact same reason on the 21st, because when it gets so close, it's sometimes even hard to get a quorum.
Yeah.
So you could move up to the week before for your regular meeting. It couldn't be, if you wanted to just still hold a regular meeting on the 13th, it could not be for the action items for the presentation, because planning board is on the 12th. So if you,
Could we do something like, we had a special meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was just like a 4 in the afternoon type deal or something, and I actually didn't mind a late afternoon.
Do you want to do it on a Wednesday or any day of the week? Then that changes greatly. So you've got the 29th, the 6th, or the 13th, or Wednesdays where you could hold at 6:30. Or I agree, the 4 in the afternoon might be nice for at least an extra, the 2 action items. And then that is much up in the air. Friday, this room is full with but I don't.
We naturally have to have this before the planning board, so we have all.
You have to before the 12th, and so you could pick any day. Nights get a little fuller in here sometimes with other boards and stuff, but 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's usually pretty open.
We could even have it the last week in November.
And you could, and that could be the 28th, the 29th, or the 30th. The 29th being a Wednesday if you wanted to keep that continuity.
I'm retired. I'm pretty much free. I'll be away. I will be away. I think the 14th, which is a Wednesday, to the 16th. So.
Okay, so now. Right.
Oh, that's December. I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
November.
But we got. Pardon me.
I'm going to Florida
Oh.
Sunday and staying for a while.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
Pretty
This
sense.
Sunday?
Kids watching the house?
Good for you.
Kids watching the house?
No, your father's going to kind of look over it.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, yeah.
Take care of the yard.
All right. So maybe
So-
the first week of
so-
December when you're back.
So I'd say Mondays aren't that good and Fridays typically aren't. Oh, I've got a special meeting that week with the planning and ZBA. I can't do it the 5th, and I've got a special meeting on the Wednesday with planning board and ZBA getting together.
What time?
That's a 6:30 at night. Oh, so you could hold
I
a
like
4
the idea
p.m.
of 4 p.m.
Yeah, let's shoot for a late afternoon. The 3rd is a Sunday, I think.
Correct.
Somewhere the 5th, 6th, 7th, like a Tuesday afternoon. Does that work? Okay, like that
That's
would
good
be
for
the.
me. Tuesday afternoon's good.
The 5th at 4 p.m. maybe?
How about the 5th at 4 p.m.?
Yeah, what,
Yeah.
and let's have conflicting, I'll send an email out, how's that, if I got something conflicting?
Yeah, and I'll have to check with Ken and Linda.
Yeah.
We're naturally they're not getting the input on this, but
So that could take several hours, though.
well, we've got a budget. We could send out for.
Well,
Could it,
was
could it be
4 to
earlier
6?
than
I don't
village-
think. I don't
Yeah,
really.
that was my question, if it takes more than 2 hours, because it could.
It could be earlier than 4.
Yes.
I have to be at a zoning board meeting in another town
Uh-huh.
At what
Yeah.
time?
at 6:30.
Yeah, let's just make it happen in 2 hours.
Okay.
Okay, then we gotta do our homework ahead of time.
Well, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to, and the 2 action items are reviewing everything we heard tonight, reviewing these plans, and thinking about what we want to recommend to the planning board, number 1. And number 2, doing a little homework on conservation easements, looking at easements we already have, which is real low-hanging fruit, just reading them and understanding what we'd like, or developing in each of our own minds what we'd like to see for an easement.
Yeah, if
Up
anybody
in
needs a
North
copy,
Newport.
I think I have a copy of the Raymond Holman easement. Anybody wants a copy?
That'd be good, yeah.
You wanna cover
And then
Well,
I don't know
let's
if
see
we
if I've
need
got-
to
I might have
be
something interesting.
versed in the actual mechanisms of how that gets done legally or not. Do we need to be the legal eagles on that too, or,
the legal eagles? No, I would think we would have the town's lawyer.
yeah,
Yeah.
Paul's, of course, it would be our money. We'd be expending,
yeah,
we'd be paying for the legal review on the town side.
yeah.
So tell them, just deal with conservation, don't go off on other things.
Yeah.
Right.
A
So if
bundle.
you could probably write up most of it and then just have it, especially if you're following a template, and then have legal review it.
Yeah, so I think what we really
That's-
want to know,
that's
bring
what
to
we
the
wanna do.
meeting is templates that look good, and those kinds of things we really want to be sure are part of an easement, and those things that the easement, clearly forbids, like greenhouses or something. Okay, for action, and I would say, want this to be in lieu of our otherwise third Wednesday of the
Still has to
December
be
meeting.
posted.
I'll cancel the 20th.
Yeah,
So are we gonna do it at 4?
yeah,
Do it at 4 and
let's shoot for 4
be as
on
prepared
the
as
5th.
possible.
Yeah, be as prepared as possible. 2 action items we're going to discuss. And that will be all our business for the month of December. And getting into January, I think it might be reasonable, looking ahead to January, if that would be the right time to ask Jeff from Moosewood to come and talk to us about, or zoom in and let us know where they're at on their
They're NRI.
NRI.
Last time I touched base with him, asking him if he needed any help gathering the information, and he said he hadn't even started yet. So,
Well, you're sort of the contact person, so you could contact him to see if there will be a reason to want to have him on the agenda for January's meeting. If he says no, it just isn't. There wouldn't be that much to present. We'll just we'll have him come February or March or whenever he's ready to give us some insight on what he's doing. Okay, any other new business to come before the court? All right, then I'll,
One more thing. I saw PJ just earlier this week, and he said if he can get access to the town's wood chipper, if we would want to
get rid of that
get rid of
brush.
all the brush that we
okay.
clean out the boardwalk, just to keep him in the loop.
All right, well, you want to keep, we'll leave that on your plate then to keep,
Okay.
and if you guys set a date and some of us are able, or all of us are able, we'll go and chip. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, abstentions? Okay. All right, we're off camera.